Bem-vindos ao Summit Redefining Healthcare em Barcelona. E eu tenho o prazer de ter comigo Eva Villalba, que além de ter sido grande parceira durante nosso projeto do Masters in Healthcare Transformation em Austin, é expert em Patient Advocacy, olhar para os interesses do paciente no contexto da oncologia. E Eva hoje é a diretora executiva do Quebec Cancer Coalition, uma instituição que busca desenvolver conexões entre as pessoas em torno do tema, mas mais do que isso, criar demonstration projects, projetos que irão demonstrar que VBHC é possível e é possível em diferentes contextos, como é o caso de Quebec. Então, Eva, thank you so much for being here. And I really would like you to show us this initial experience that you've had with colorectal cancer in Quebec.
Yes, thanks. So thank you for having me. And we actually had this experience mapping project where we spoke to people living with colorectal cancer, their caregivers, people at different stages, early age onset colorectal, 50 plus colorectal cancer patients, and we spoke to them using the experience group methodology, which allowed us to uncover their unmet needs and identify the gaps between what were we measuring along the care path, what were we measuring, in the pre-diagnosis phase, in the diagnosis phase, in the active treatment phase, and in surveillance and symptom management, and how did that correlate with what patients were telling us that they needed at each stage. So by mapping, we mapped their emotional lens. What were they feeling at each of those steps? We mapped their mental lens. What were they thinking at each of those steps? And we mapped their physical lens. So what were their symptoms and how could that be made better? And then by looking at the three types of outcomes, comfort, capability, and calm, we were able to identify that there were certain gaps for which there are PROMs, patient-reported outcomes measurement, but they were not being measured. Things like symptoms like neuropathy or digestive issues that needed to be addressed with a dietitian, sexual dysfunction, emotional distress, all of these things which are so important and make a difference for patients were not being measured, but they do exist in standard sets across the world for colorectal cancer. And so by working with patients and with the healthcare providers, we were able to encourage them to apply those measures and measure the outcomes that matter most to patients.
So Eva, it's pretty much like before selecting the outcomes from as a provider point of view, we should listen to the patients, right?
Exactly.
And do you find that this experience group methodology is the right way to go?
So what I really appreciate about the experience group methodology is that you do not show up with assumptions about what the answer to your questions are. You allow the answers to come from the patients. And so that breaks the biases that we might have as healthcare providers or managers. And so it really allows us to uncover the assumptions that we've been making all along and to really understand what are the needs from the patient's perspective. And so I think that to really uncover the outcomes that matter to patients, you need to ask them. And this methodology is one such way of really getting the information directly from patients in a way that allows the answers to come organically from them and not to be biased by what the medical profession believes that they need. And it really highlights the gaps in their needs versus what they're receiving and what we're measuring.
And that's amazing because we have been together in a project before in pancreatic cancer and we had the same finding, right? We're asking about the wrong symptoms.
Exactly.
And then when we go into really listening to what the patient says, then you just have to revisit all your outcome metrics. And that is really amazing.
And I do believe that one of the reasons is because our healthcare system is designed to treat diseases, not people. And so a lot of the outcomes that we're not measuring are outcomes that matter to the quality of life of the individual, not to just getting rid of the cancer. And so if you're only concerned with getting rid of the cancer, you will not take care of the other things that make a huge difference in the quality of life of the person. Like, you might not have cancer, but you might have to wear a diaper every day, and that ruins your quality of life. Or you might not be able to have healthy sexual relationships with your partners, and that ruins your quality of life. And that has to be as important as getting rid of your cancer. And so yes, we get rid of the cancer, but we have to treat the person and not the cancer.
Exactly. And I really love the way you call this abstract, which is, it's person-centered experience. It's not patient-centered experience.
Yes.
Tell me more about the decision to use the word person instead of patient.
So there has been a shift. There's this recognition that we are people before we are patients. And I'm part of this movement in Canada called People Before Patients. And so we want to know who the person is outside of their identity of being a patient. Outside of the hospital, they are a person. And we need to take care of the person, not just the patient, in that one moment that we see them at the hospital. And so it's person-centered experience because it's what matters to the individual as a person and in the context that they live in as well, in their community, with their families, and all of that matters and should be measured and improved in improving healthcare and really creating value.
Well, Eva, thank you so much. It was really amazing to listen to the basics of what value-based healthcare should be. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. E para vocês que acompanham a Academia VBHC, nós queremos trazer cada vez mais insights como esses. Assim como a Eva adapta isso para o contexto do Canadá, quais são as soluções e como a gente pode trazer isso para o nosso idioma, para a língua portuguesa, porque também isso é um desafio para a Eva, que é trazer esse contexto de VBHC para a língua francesa. Então, criando esses projetos de demonstração, a gente de fato vai dar o primeiro passo para implementar a VBHC. E esse vídeo vai estar disponível então no www.academiavbhc.org. Espero vocês lá.